Hill.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I just want to mention that I'm rising today to speak on Bill 84, Medical Assistance in Dying Statute Law Amendment Act. And unfortunately, sort of the acronym, as it were, is MAID, M-A-I-D. Sometimes I wonder if we need to be a little more careful. It's no problem, Madam Speaker. I've been here 3 years, and I'm quite used to all the goings-on. So it kind of bothered me that it came out to be the letters MAID made, but you know, it's a serious topic that we're debating. It's a difficult topic that we're debating. Sometimes we get to talk about you know, pleasant topics. Today we were debating whether or not a folk song, a francophone folk song, should be the official folk song. It was a motion, so I don't know how enforceable that is, but we had a fun time here today practicing our French and with many visitors. So now here it is, the end of the day, and it's a tough topic, I think, for all of us, because we don't like to think about death if we don't have to, but unfortunately it is part of life. And this bill, we had no choice. It had to come forward because we have to make the necessary changes, because after all, back in February 2015, the Supreme Court of Canada struck down the criminal code prohibiting assistance in dying. So basically, it means that we're forced to address the necessary changes in our legislation and to make sure that we are in line with the Supreme Court of Canada and all the implications that that entails. So the court's view was that assistance in dying should be granted to a competent adult person who clearly consents to the termination of their life and has a grievous and irremediable medical condition. Mediable. Oh, thank you. It's not a word I get to say often, I hope, including an illness, disease, or disability that causes enduring suffering that is intolerable to the individual in the circumstances of his or her condition. The Supreme Court of Canada also stated, and I'm quoting here, that it is for Parliament and the provincial legislatures to respond, should they so choose, by enacting legislation consistent with the constitutional parameters set out, end of quote. And of course, that's with good reason. So as such, assisted dying became legal in Canada last June on the 6th. Today, Ontario is continuing to debate Bill 84, and you know, we have to recognize that many people in our communities have many serious concerns with this piece of legislation. So, but basically, Bill 84 is providing clarity and legal protections for healthcare professionals and organizations that provide access to medical assistance and dying services in Ontario in accordance with the federal legislation, Bill C-14. A doctor or nurse practitioner who provides medical assistance and dying services would have to notify the coroner with the necessary information to determine whether or not an investigation into the death is necessary. So basically what that means, Mr. Speaker, is, and I apologize for those watching at home, but Madam Speaker got replaced with the Mr. Speaker, so I don't want to look too foolish. But basically, there shouldn't be a coroner's examination if it's an assisted death, and that doctors and nurse practitioners who are involved are protected by the law unless there's alleged negligence. And again, I would just bring up that here in Canada we don't have capital punishment. And we do read often in our newspapers and on the news on TV or radio about cases in the States where they still do practice capital punishment, and the person did not die a swift and easy death. And I think I'm joined by everybody here today in being somewhat horrified when we hear of that, whether it was, I think it's usually by injection, that it doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. And what I would say as somebody who used to work a bit in the healthcare world is that, you know, human beings, we're all different, and the doctors don't really find out how different we are until they try to do a treatment or something on us, that not everybody reacts the way it's expected. And we certainly see that with many types of medications and treatments, and even just taking something over the counter like cold medication. Some people are awake all night when they take a certain antihistamine or NyQuil or what have you, and other people are immediately practically comatose. So we can certainly understand that, yes, age is a factor, weight, general health, all these kind of things, but inherently we're all quite different, and we really don't know how we're going to react to anything of a medical nature until it's upon us. And I think that that's part of the trepidation with assisted death, is we can't always assume that things go the way we want, and we have to ensure that whoever is practicing, I wouldn't necessarily call this healthcare, but it is healthcare, that they are well-trained, and that there's no issues with the dosages and the calculations of those dosages. So obviously, you know, death certificates for medical assisted dying don't need to be signed by the coroner unless there is some kind of investigation. I just want to mention a few areas of, I guess, concern in our communities, because really that's what we're here for, to give, yes, our opinion, to do research, and to get involved in the debate. But we're also here on behalf of our constituents and different groups in the province who have concerns and come to us with their concerns, and I'm really happy to be here today to be a bit of their voice. First of all, some of you may have heard about an Ontario young man who is interested in having the assisted dying procedure because he suffers from mental illness. And that was a big concern for me when I heard of this. It was just a week or two ago. His name is Adam Mayer Clayton, and I'm just going to read to you a few of his quotes, which are, quote, "There's no cure for what I have. With modern science, we don't understand mechanically what's going on inside my brain." He wants the government to make doctor-assisted death available to mentally ill people like him. He's appealing to the federal government first, and he feels he's exhausted all treatment options. Obviously, this is of grave concern for advocates for mental health treatments, because they, anybody who knows somebody who is suffering on an emotional level, that suffering can have physical consequences, and we certainly would want to have our healthcare dollars focused on getting people treatment for mental health concerns, not to be giving up at such a young age. I find it actually quite heartbreaking that he feels that he wants to give up because the pain is so debilitating. His father is supporting him in this because his father believes that there isn't treatment available for him. So I think I am joined by most people in the province by saying that we wish him well, and we wish that somebody can offer some solutions and some treatments for obviously his pain. How much of it is emotional and physical, it doesn't really matter, because the pain is actually the same. I was visited actually a couple of weeks ago. Dr. Nisha Fernandez lives in my riding, and she came to my constituency office February 13th. And I'm not going to lie to you, Mr. Speaker, she was very emotional, and she does not want us to be practicing. Again, it's a medical term usually in healthcare. When we practice healthcare, we're helping people get better, but again, death is part of life. And she is very concerned, as are many of her colleagues, with the fact that they feel that this government is forcing them, if they don't want to practice assisted dying, then forcing them to effectively refer, and they call it effective referral. They want to be protected from having to refer. Some of the options out there are to possibly have centres in different regions of the province where doctors who do want to practice assisted dying techniques are available, and nurse practitioners. I'm sorry if I keep saying doctors, the nurse practitioners as well, and that this way people aren't going to say their family doctor and asking for a referral, that these centres are very well known. I think that it's really important that we ensure that there's great public education and understanding, and that the public feels that they are consulted and that they are being supported by their elected officials in Ontario. I have a letter here from Elizabeth Solistio, and she's one of my constituents, and she's writing to express her deep concern regarding conscience rights. And what I would just say in terms of conscience rights is that, I mentioned it when I did questions and comments on this exact same bill just this week, is that who becomes a doctor or a nurse practitioner, a nurse or a nurse's aide in our province, in our country, across the world? It's people who have so much feeling and emotion and empathy. And if we could measure empathy, if it was tangible, they would measure very, very high for the most part. And the ones who don't quickly find out, I hope, that this isn't a profession for them, and perhaps find something else to do, whether by their choice or by the patient's choice in the province. But empathy, what does that mean exactly, Mr. Speaker? And as I've mentioned before, as the wife of a physician, as the mother of a physician, I can tell you what type of people go into healthcare because I live with them. And I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself to people who are here, but you know, the population of this room does change, as well as the people tuning in. My husband, I learned very early on, we've been married 31 years, doesn't kill spiders, doesn't kill flies. He catches flies. It doesn't matter how long it takes him. He works very hard at it, and he's quite good at it, I have to say. It's quite a talent. And he carries spiders out of the house, as well as his cup and hand technique for flies. I learned very quickly, once my children could talk, that I was going to be in big trouble if I killed flies or spiders in the house. I could get away with the odd bug or two. And my son was no different. He had incredible empathy. Even as a young child, if another child was hurt, he actually cried more than the child who was hurt. So, and obviously it's not physical pain. It's he felt the pain if he saw the child was hurt. He would even wake up the next day, and the first thing he would say to me is, we have to go and call and see how the boy who got hurt in the playground, if he's okay. So these are the people in our community who are taking care of us when we're sick. Sometimes they feel disrespected by the government, certainly in terms of their contract negotiations. I can tell you that doctors do not work a 9-to-5 job with breaks and lunches. They are getting phone calls from colleagues, from emergency rooms, from their staff, from their patients' relatives, and they don't get paid for all that time that they spend doing emails and phone calls. They have to spend their own money doing continuing education. They don't have sick days. They don't have pensions. They don't have they don't feel that they have the best of the world of working for the government. They feel they have the worst of both worlds, that they're paid, they're treated like government employees for the tough parts, which is not really having a say in how you practice all the time or where you practice, and they feel that they have the worst of a small business person, having to make payroll, having to hire employees, find out their employees need to take time off from work for personal reasons or family reasons, and having to deal with that. It's hard to run a business, and on top of practicing medicine and keeping up with all of the new treatments and techniques, they also have to run a small business. So I think that if the doctors in our communities are telling us that they have concerns with this piece of legislation, the minimum that we can do is really hear out their concerns and sit down with them and have the dialogue. Other provinces, such as Alberta and other jurisdictions in Europe, have dealt with this type of legislation without having effective referrals. Alberta has an email and a phone number that you call. You don't have to go through your doctor. Doctors aren't forced to refer to doctors who practice assisted dying. So I have to wonder why we are doing this to our healthcare practitioners to make them feel so uncomfortable and possibly even feeling like their beliefs, and I'm not going to say religious beliefs because that's included in it as well, but a lot of times what I'm saying is their strong emotional beliefs that it's not something that they want to do, and they shouldn't be poked in the eye by this government, which is I think how some of them are feeling, that they feel that there's a bit of a war going on right now with the government and some of the healthcare practitioners, and they feel, why would, this is what some of the doctors are saying to me, is why is the government doing this when other jurisdictions don't feel it necessary to do this? So it could be oversight. I hope it's oversight. I hope it isn't something intentional on the government's part in terms of you know, making it difficult for the doctors or making it uncomfortable for the doctors. So I do have a few more minutes, and I will mention a few more names of people who wrote to me. John Ferrari, who mentions that, and it's interesting the titles of some of the subject line of their emails. His was Hippocratic Oath, and obviously doctors take a Hippocratic Oath to make people better, and some of them take that, maybe you could say it's literally, or maybe you could even argue it's too literally, but they take it it's a very strong decision that they make to take care of people and make them better. I have Alexander Orazietti, who maybe it's a relative of the former member here, whose subject said, remove unfair barriers to access for dying. And he wants to ensure that access to medical assistance in dying is fair and consistent across the province. Tina Arbaquez says that the effective referral protocol is just wrong. And I have to say, Mr. Speaker, that it's very important to us in the legislature to think of all the sometimes unintended consequences of decisions that we make here. That I think that we have enough experienced people to know that there have been times where legislation has been changed or even small changes were made, and there were grave unintended consequences to that. And it cost people their livelihood. It can be very detrimental. It's not small things in our communities. And I hope that we are considering possible consequences, which we certainly wouldn't want the doctors that score the highest on that, as I say, the empathy scale. We certainly wouldn't want those doctors leaving our province for other jurisdictions and being left with the ones who aren't at the top of the empathy. We want empathetic doctors who I guess the lay term is bedside manner, who really care, who it's not just a job. We all have experiences with physicians who went above and beyond, and in a way maybe we take it for granted, and we shouldn't. My own mother, my late mother, was in palliative care at Sunnybrook, and I actually asked her the question, if there was a pill you could take, would you take it? And she said no. She said as long as my pain can be managed reasonably well, she was able to cope. I have visited, as have many people here, hospices. Just last year, I visited the Kensington Hospice with our leader of the Progressive Conservative Party and our critic from Elgin, Middlesex, London, our critic for health. And the people that work in these centres are just you know, incredible is one word, absolutely incredible. They just really make your heart expand. That's all I can say. So I'm glad to weigh in, and I really hope that we're going to get this right, because I think it's a very, very important piece of legislation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.